Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the globe you have joined in. Welcome to day 2 of our flagship launch event of the InnovateIN48 Partner Edition for this year. Today, we have a great set of discussions on the latest fintech topics and also a few workshops curated especially for you. Let me share my screen to review the agenda with you so that you get a view of how the day would unfold. So the first session for the day, we have a keynote and introduction by our FIS leaders on unveiling fintech's next frontier, followed by a keynote by industry experts on fintech investment and digital public infrastructure. We have few discussions on fintech investment landscapes. We get a venture capital view. We also get a discussion on how the digital commerce is getting re-imaged by ONDC and India Stats, followed by a discussion on fintech investment landscapes by the corporate venture capital view. Post that, we get into a workshop on IFSCA. Then we have a list of panel discussions on the latest topics on data innovation and regulation. We have digital assets 2.0, how digital assets impact financial markets. Then we get into a few workshops that are being done parallelly. You can choose to join one of these. These are being conducted by IBM and AWS. Post that, we have discussions on Polygon 2.0, the value layer of the internet. We have fintech APAC landscape and trends related discussions. And we also have discussions on beyond legacy systems, the role of Hedera and distributed ledger in modern finance. Post that, we have, again, the hot topics, AI and next fintech disruptions. We have embedded finance and B2B fintech future. We get a strategic view and also a tech view. So all these discussions are lined up for you today. All these would be streamed live at designated time. If you're choosing to get into the parallel workshops, you can choose which one to get into. Always, these are made available for a later watch also. Post that, we will close the day with Karthik giving the closing note. And this is how this day would unfold in front of you. With this introduction, I'll hand it over to Karthik to take on to the first session of the day. And I hope you have a good time like you had yesterday. Happy learning.
Thank you, Surabhi. Indeed, an interesting day that is going to unfold. Let me first welcome everybody for the first keynote session of today. Let me introduce Venu Madhav, who is our first keynote speaker. Venu is the Senior Vice President with FIS and has an illustrious career that spans around 3 decades in the financial technology space. And of course, he is particularly known for his pivotal role that he is while designing groundbreaking core banking solutions. Venu, of course, has been instrumental in rolling out FIS's flagship product, which is called Modern Banking Platform, a core banking application. And the initiative has built ground up and today has garnered a significant industry award and recognition and a growing clientele. He is equally committed to nurturing new talent. It is also evident from his collaboration with Manipal Academy for Higher Education, MIT. Also, when we delve deeper into today's discussion, we will explore into how innovation goes beyond the realms of technology and enables creating an ecosystem that fosters continuous learning and growth. And Venu's insight here will guide us in understanding the symbiotic relationship between large enterprises and startup culture in the fintech space, particularly from the Asia and APAC region. Without further ado, Venu, welcome to today's call.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Karthik. Looking forward for the session.
Thank you. I also want to take the pleasure to inviting Prashant, a Director for Client Services with FIS. Prashant has been the torchbearer of the InnovateIN48 event and prevalent throughout the day. Prashant, of course, comes with decades of experience, particularly 10 years with FIS, and he has a niche that he has carved for himself through the leadership of technology strategy, especially in the fintech space. Prashant has notably conceptualized the IN48 Partner Edition, which we are here today for the second year running, and it has helped assist a lot of startups integrate seamlessly with FIS's diverse ecosystem. His leadership, of course, in the External Innovation Task Force has been crucial for spearheading many strategic initiatives, hackathons, and collaborations with academic institutions. He's actively engaged with the startup and the innovation community, which has helped us bolster this, this initiative. Today, Prashant will explore how the journey came into being for InnovateIN48, and he'll share some insight on his experience on how this concept came into becoming and his weaving of technology, investment, and emerging markets together. With these two gentlemen, I think we'll have a captivating session. Welcome, Prashant.
Thank you, Karthik.
So let's get going. Venu, I'll probably start with you. Given your experience in the global fintech space, what is your view on the evolving landscape of India and APAC fintech market, and what influences does it put on the financial and the banking innovation concepts?
Karthik, I think we are in a very unique moment in the history of India itself. Yeah? So there are, I would say, 4 or 5 drivers that are fundamentally changing everything that we do here. And that, of course, includes the banking or the payment and the financial parts. Right? So let's take a step back and see what are those big drivers. I think the big driver, number 1, is the DPI, the digital public infrastructure. Nowhere in the world has anything of this scale, size, and impact been done. So whether it is the India stack with Aadhaar, UPI, etc., that has fundamentally changed in everything that we do. It has changed from a speed of doing things, from a scale of doing things, from the accessibility of doing things. When nowhere you have seen when Jan Dhan happened, 400 million accounts being opened in no time. Yeah. Same thing with the QR codes, right? I mean, it has taken us probably 40 years to get to 6 million or whatever POS machines, whereas in 3 years we got to 50 million QR codes. So these are completely non-linear developments that have fundamentally changed everything that we do. So that's the DPI is a huge game changer for India. And many countries now want to look at the Indian experience and see how they can take into their ecosystems. So that's one thing, right? The second thing that I would say, which has really transformed our country, is the network and digitization penetration. Yeah? I mean, the speed at which 5G got rolled out in India is, again, super exceptional, right? The moment we have connectivity, the moment we have connectivity with mobile and include the DPI, suddenly we are in a very different landscape, right? And the third big change is the demography. This is a young country. We have the largest mass of people who are less than 30 years, 35 years old, which means the ability to adapt, the speed with which we can change is truly phenomenal. So you add these 3, which is ability of DPI, the young demography that we have, and third is the network penetration with the lowest cost tariffs of network availability in the world with the mobile access. I think this has fundamentally changed everything that we do. The speed of what we do, the scale of what we do, the cost of what we do, and the time of what we do. All this, I believe, have fundamentally changed the landscape in the financial space. And many countries today are looking to India and say what they can leverage from this experience. So yes, I think it's a big impact. India and Asia are truly leading this space in the world. And I think this is just the beginning. The amount of innovation that we saw in the last 5 years, and if we look at the next 5 to 10 years, it should be truly significantly higher. And it's exciting times for us being here.
No, absolutely. And when you say about the focus that India has, let's talk about modern banking platform. While it was a startup sort of an initiative that came practically out of a paper, today it is a flagship product for FIS. So with that sense of growth from a paper incubation all the way to something that is now powering billions of dollars of transactions across the globe. What is your perspective on how startups today can integrate seamlessly with large infrastructure, large financial infrastructure like FIS?
Okay, that's a great question. So when we conceptualized MVP, modern banking platform, which is FIS's next generation core banking platform, and it's a global core banking platform, which means we have designed it to be adaptable and deployable across the globe. Yeah? So one of the things that we have always said is that there will be a number of domains where FIS is not going to have components or products in that space. And we will work with partners. That includes startups, right? And so from an MVP perspective, there are two facets or dimensions. Dimension number one is the domains where we know for sure we will be working with a partner. Okay. And the second thing is that domain will also vary by geography. So I'll take MVP example. I'll take a couple of examples that we do, right? So in the US, which is the first country that we have rolled out MVP to, when we were rolling out our first lending core product line, we worked with two startups, one for loan origination and one for the collections part. Right? And we worked with them and integrated with their solutions and offered that to our customers. Right? Now, again, these startups bought modern capabilities in those domains. So they were cloud native, all the cool stuff that you expect in a modern solution. They had it, and they were small, nimble organizations. So they can run really fast. Right? So it met our need of speed. It met our need of modern ways of working and technology. And those would be two examples where we work with startups, where we incorporated the startup offering into the FIS offering to the customer. And we have partnered together to add value to our customers. Now, as we take MVP and roll out to other markets in Asia, so we are starting off with New Zealand, and hopefully next year we'll start off an initiative in Thailand. We believe that startups who serve these markets in those domains are somebody that we should work closely with. So that's how MVP and the startup ecosystem can work together. And we have examples where we have done this in other markets.
Great, Venu. I think this is a huge promise that startups, especially from the India and Asia Pac region, could feel. And I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we have shown proof of collaboration with startups in the past. Now, Prashant, maybe I'm coming to you on this subject of InnovateIN48. Now, while we talk about InnovateIN48 throughout the day, maybe it would help us to understand the history. How did you initially conceptualize this idea? How did this idea come into being? And what was the primary catalyst that drove into creating this innovative platform?
Right. Thanks, Karthik. So since we have a lot of startups in the mix today, I'll try to use the same terminologies that usually startups are familiar with. So when we started, this idea was part of the innovation task force, or under the umbrella of innovation task force. In 2021, this task force was meant for focused on innovation, specifically internal innovation. And then we added the track, which was an external innovation track, which started with a small concept of inviting VCs, founders, thought leaders from the industry. And that's where we started the interaction with the industry from the Asia Pacific region as just one track. And then we started getting the inputs from the ecosystem and saying, hey, why don't you do panel discussion? Why don't you invite a group of startups or startup entire teams here, and then start to collaborate with them? And that's how we started with the panel discussions. And at some point, we felt that there is a definite need from the startup ecosystem to understand the enterprise ecosystem more. And in fact, within FIS also, we had multiple startup programs, and it was very confusing for startups to connect and understand these programs. So there was some structure needed around this, and that's where we thought maybe it is a good idea to start with some structured program which will simplify the complexities of startups connecting to FIS. And that's where the IN48 Partner Edition was created last year. There were quite complex navigations in terms of compliance, regulations, and other areas which typically come when you are interfacing with the external ecosystem. And that's where we started with a small pilot last year that was quite successful. And the driving part of that pilot was inviting early stage startups. And that's where last year was focused on early stage startups. And this year, we are going to scaling stage startups. But the idea here is to understand, the core driver is to understand how we can make the journey of the startups with the enterprise more smooth and more joyful as an experience. Because when you're having a startup mindset, you are very agile, we are very innovative. At the same time, you need very enterprise building for enterprise learning that you need to do if you really want to do enterprise plumbing there. And with that kind of a core, I'll say, requirement, the entire IN48 engine was driven with. And that's how the IN48 Partner Edition was conceptualized. It was conceptualized because of a need that we felt in the industry, and that's where the IN48 concept was born there.
Great. I'm just going to add on to another question on that line. So we are still in the early stages from an IN48 Partner Edition concept, which is the second year in the running. While FIS has a long legacy and a very diverse portfolio, in the start, do you have a specific sector or a technology innovation area that you want to prioritize with this forum?
Right. So I think very good question. In fact, this is one of the most difficult areas to work with, because you have to first understand the broader industry needs and then fine-tune that needs to FIS requirements, and then fine-tune the understanding of the region as well, and then place those focus areas there. So what we did is we started with the FIS Global Innovation Report, which is the flagship report. And in fact, yesterday, one of the sessions was on that topic of how FIS does the research with large space of our customers, and then specifically C-level executives. And that's where the story starts, when we are trying to understand the focus areas. And that's where the Global Innovation Report became cornerstone and beacon for understanding the focus areas. And those focus areas were then taken with every dimensions within FIS, let it be accelerator program, let it be venture program, let it be alliance program, let it be our API programs. And we asked a question, hey, is this something that we also have gaps and needs from the industry that we want to fill up? And that's where we decided to have 6 key tracks, and these are just general themes like data and AI, digital assets, customer experience, embedded finance, B2B fintech, card and money movement, trust and security, and beyond fintech. These tracks had been kept deliberately at very high level without a specific problem as such, simply because we wanted to make sure that we are covering a broad spectrum of innovation. And that's where we fine-tune that. But beyond that, I want to also add to it is, it is not just the tracks or themes. We have a very kind of a structured approach towards where the focus should be, beyond technology tracks, beyond business tracks. So the core part of IN48 is the potential alignment. And that's where we struggle a lot, or startups struggle a lot to find an alignment with the enterprise and clarity on those alignments. And that's where our team works very closely with the startups to find that. So one simple one page within 48 hours aggregate between startups and enterprise, or FIS in this case, and then find that potential alignment that can be used to be showcased in the demo days at the next phase. And obviously the core innovation that startup brings, initial success in scaling, and intent that startup has to scale globally. And obviously our internal buy versus partner versus build decisions are something which go in addition to the themes that are selected. So I hope that addresses the question there.
I think it shows the attention to detail that we have given over the past 2 years, and the focus and seriousness at which we have been doing this program. But while I did say that we are probably into the second year, we must have already reached a count of 500 startups with whom we have some form of relationship or the other. since the inception of the program itself. Can you share some unique challenges or some breakthrough experiences that you had while interacting with these startups? And what do you think the IN48 Partner Edition itself can do to distinguish itself while addressing the specific unmet needs and hurdles that these fintech startups may face?
Right. So Karthik, in fact, since last year, in some shape of the form, IN48 Partner Edition has been known for more than 500 startups. So last year, we participated, almost 200 startups participated into the initial first year of pilot. And then we had multiple local events that we did. And this is the Asia Pacific larger event that we're doing today. And as a part of this, we have reached either via applications, via event attendance, via interactions with startups with that size. And we are hoping to increase that size as we go further. But at the same time, we pivoted a lot from the approaches to fine-tune and fail fast and correct ourselves and then align ourselves and get the most optimal outcomes from the program since the inception. So when we were last year in an early stage, we were last year pilot was focused more on early stage, which were inviting more emerging tech, early stage risky areas, like right from the Web3, right from the metaverse and other areas there. So they were quite interesting, but at the same time required maturity in terms of enterprise readiness. Our enterprise build was something that was missing, and that's where continuation of work with those startups became a bit difficult. And that's where we continue to focus and nurture the early stage startups, but then we pivoted to in 2023 to a concept which was more on scaling stage. The scaling stage was a big learning. This was a big learning for us because the ultimate success of this program really depends on how many startups really we can convert into some kind of a relation with FIS. And in order to make sure that that is done, we need to some level fine tune the initial filtering itself. And in the initial filtering, we said that yes, we want to work with the startups which are in a scaling stage, who have successfully established their market and product fit in a specific region or geography or country, who have initial 1 or 2 logos, and who are most importantly looking for global expansion. And while doing that expansion, they would like to use the Lego building blocks, which can give them the overnight kind of a expansion that they need on the global scale. Now, at the same time, if they are looking for a larger market, then FIS is something which is the best choice in the fintech because of the leadership that we have here, right? And that's where this particular year is focused on the scaling startups instead of very early stage startup or concept startups. And that's where we are working with them. And we added one more attachment to this program called Ambassador Program. Now, Ambassador Program is the one that starts immediately after IN48, where senior members from our team are attached to those startups which are being selected as a winners for IN48 Partner Edition. And they will be essentially taking the startup, hand-holding the startups, and then making sure that there is some kind of a conversion, potential conversion that's happening. Again, all of these are something which are more collaborative efforts. So nothing is guaranteed in this world, but there's a best effort from the Ambassador Program that will go on these areas. So with all of these things, the core learning is listen to the market very closely and try to understand what exactly is the missing. The missing piece was the lightness of the program. So we have many corporate programs which are running in the startup ecosystem, but many of them are really bulky. It takes months together to find some alignments. And we wanted to make sure that we, as part of IN48, very agile. We are within 48 hours jointly between startup and IN48 team, we're able to find the alignment and then find that and take that startup to the demo days and beyond that in a very short span. Now, although the time gap between all of these milestones may be more, but the actual effort that is needed from startups as well as the FIS team is very less. We have made sure that those meetings are not beyond 30 minutes and not more than 3 to 4 interactions, and then we go to the demo days and so on. So looking at the startup constraints and looking at the fact that many of the members in the IN48 community at FIS itself have very close understanding. Either some of them are entrepreneurs, some of them are closely work with the startup-like ecosystems, and some of them are part of FIS in-house startup-like kind of environments there. So we really understand the startups. We really want to make sure that we work dedicatedly for with focused efforts from them, and that's the differentiator that I believe that we have brought in with IN48 Partner Edition there.
Great, Prashant. I think that summary of tying all of the building blocks together, as you said, the Lego blocks together, gives a view of not just creating a setup, but also pivoting when necessary to make this mutually beneficial for both startups and FIS, and of course the industry at large. Now, you did talk about collaboration, and we know collaboration goes beyond just startups. And I want to probably now ask Venu. One of his favorite topics has always been nurturing talent, and nurturing talent has now gone from industry into the academia, and that is also now true with us having a collaboration with the Manipal Academy for Higher Education, MAHE, where we have created a specific fintech course curated by FIS. So Venu, why did you do this, and what is your view on fostering fintech innovation at a very, very early stage, right from academia?
Thanks, Karthik. So yes, so we started on thinking about this last year, and there were, I would say, 3 facets that drove us this initiative. So the first facet is over the last 3-4 years, FIS has been hiring from campus. And but one of the things that we observed, especially the area that we work, whether it is core banking, etc., is fairly niche area. It's not something that you go to a university or a college or a training school and learn that domain, right? So the impact of what we were seeing is when we were taking the college students into FIS, the amount of learning curve before they could become effective was very large. And we had to, now, of course, we want to have college talent. There's a lot of energy that gets added in when you take these youngsters who come into the industry, and they come with their mindset, which could be different, which could add value to what we do, right? So then the next question became, okay, how can we work together with academia so that when a college graduate joins FIS, they are much more effective from day one, right? And that drove us to start to look for an academic partner. And it just happened coincidentally that Manipal Institute of Technology, MAHE, were looking at offering a first of its kind in India, a computer science with fintech program. And they were very enthusiastic to partner with us. So we then formed an MOU between FIS and MIT MAHE, where FIS would be the industry partner for what is India's first computer science with fintech 4-year undergraduate program. And we are now working with them to participate in defining the course structure. And for the fintech specific courses, we'll be working with them in detailing the content and later helping in delivering the content, doing project work, podcast, university hackathon, then eventually internships, and from internships into employment. Okay, so that's the path that we have taken, and we are very excited with this. We signed the MOU end of July, early August. That's when we got the MOU signed. We have working teams now both on MIT MAHE side and FIS side who are finalizing on the curriculum and starting to detail the course content. So pretty good progress, very energetic on both the sides. So that's facet number 1, which was more to how do we enable the students when they come out of the university that they are much more ready to work in a fintech, or especially domains like core banking, which is fairly niche domain, right? So that was to solve that challenge. Yeah. The second facet that that drove us for this initiative is we want to be if you take back to the earlier question that you had, India is a very young country, right? India, it's a very energetic young workforce, and we want to be in close contact with that young generation. Right? We want to be part of the change. We want to have an interaction with the students in a constant basis so that we are evolving with them and we are learning with them of changes that could come in with that generation of society, right? So that was the second facet, that we want to establish a close connect with the students. We want to learn and see how they work, how they bank, how they pay, how they think, right? Because at the end of the day, 10 years down the lane, that generation will become your consuming class, etc. That was the second facet. And of course, the last facet is universities in India. One of the very promising things that we see compared to 20 years back, today, Indian universities have really evolved. There is a lot of incubation, innovation at the university level. And we want to be part of that. Today, if you look at every large university, they have incubation centers, they have innovation centers, they have seed capital for students to start startups. And we want to be also part of that. So those are the three facets that drove us for this, what I call as a new age program, one of the kind in India, the first in its kind in India. And now it's a long journey. The first batch of students joined this year. By the time the first batch graduates, it'll be 4 years down the lane. And I'm sure we will learn as we go along. But it's a very exciting initiative, and we are so glad that we have initiated that, and we are looking forward for that.
Great, Venu. I think one of the core values of FIS is to give back, and there's no better way to give back than giving back as education.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for for spearheading this initiative. So when we talk about fintech as an ecosystem, we have the regulators, we have the industry, we have thought leadership, we have academia, and of course we have the startup. So Prashant, maybe this is apt for you. What do you think, or what are the ways in which these pillars should work together to foster a better and an enterprise-wide ecosystem for innovation?
Thanks, Karthik. So since many of us are in the IT domain, I'll use that analogy. We have a technology stack that we use, like we have probably networks, servers, applications, platforms, businesses run on those layers. I think the innovation also has multiple layers to it. And it all starts with, as Venu rightly said, the fundamental talent part, and where Venu already explained how we are investing into the thought leaders and nurturing the talent of fintech, focused talent there, and not just in India, but we are doing that globally. In fact, Georgia FinTech is one of the good examples where more than 205 institutions come together, more than 27 academia flavors come together into single platform, and FI is leading the way to integrate all of these wealth of information to guide and direct that, and that's what we are trying to replicate now in Asia Pacific. So with that base layer of the talent, now we need to start building on top of it and trying to understand where exactly from that angle we grow. And there are three kind of dimensions to it. One is our regulators, where they create the safe rails and experimentation sandboxes. And how do we essentially work with the regulators to understand the systemic need of the sandboxes? Some of them probably are addressing the market-driven risks that we have. Otherwise, some of them are more proactive risks that we can address using regulatory frameworks here. One of the good example is the data regulation that is coming up in India, right? So all of this is collaborative evolution, and industry and regulators need to work very close together. And we have seen recently, even the early stage startups are essentially becoming part of the ecosystem at very early stage and giving the required inputs. For example, in Sahmati, many of the startups that we are working with are part of the Sahmati's, I'll say, open source development, stack development efforts there. So on one side, you have regulators, other side, we have industry, and third side, we have the emerging startups, which need to work together to get this innovation stack going. At the same time, it needs to be also thought from multiple dimensions from the geography as well. So what's happening in India, what's happening in Singapore, what's happening in Hong Kong. And that's where IN48 Partner Edition, last year we have MS CTO Sapnindu Mahanti talk about how Singapore is placing its strategy from regulators sandbox point of view. Today we have IFSCA speaking to us about how integrated regulators really work and help the country's ecosystem to grow, as well as have a different dimension altogether. And so on. So that is kind of a regulatory dimension to it. From the industry dimension also, we need to work with the other counterparts and not just with a single industry, but multi-dimensional industry space. Like, for example, telecom industry, we have a lot of overlap in fintech. Then we have space tech, which can be also having overlap in alternate data space, right? So healthcare and insurance areas, right? So there are multi-industry dimensions that need to come together. And most importantly, the validators of this ecosystem, like VCs, CVCs, micro VCs, angels, all of these enablers also, who essentially give the rhythm to all of these, the orchestration that we need between these components, because they are having the fuel essentially to drive this change. And this is something which we also need to understand, that we'll need to work closer, and not just to closer, but to understand the real pains of work for CVs to work with VC to work with CVC, and vice versa. And that's how we can build that kind of ecosystem. So this value chain does go into multiple different layers across multiple different countries, and that's where we want to make IN48 as a platform where all of these silos can come together. In fact, internally within FIS, we have broken the silos, and we had yesterday one great kind of a panel where all of the FIS innovation programs heads, let it be accelerator program, venture program, alliance partner program, line of businesses, let it be the Code Connect representatives, all of them were on the panel discussion yesterday in a single forum. And similarly, now we need to move towards dimensions where we can bring, like in today's sessions, we have regulators also, we have industry experts also, thought leaders also, some of the investors also coming in and talking to us. But the idea behind IN48 is to make this as a platform where multiple dimensions can collide to each other and unlock the values that we need. And this is, I believe, the more richness of things will come when we unfold multiple dimensions together, instead of working in silos into various specific areas there. So that's the view that I have. Thanks, Karthik.
Thank you, Prashant. I think the analogy was brilliant, and the way you weaved it in a sequence and also tied it back to how FIS has programs for all of this, I think is very enlightening. Thank you, Prashant. Maybe now I'll go a little deeper into different innovation and strategy topics. Venu, this is probably to you. You actually have a patent, right? The patent on systems and methods for rapid booting and deployment in a cloud environment. When you talk about cloud technology and cloud infrastructure, what do you think is a game-changing attempt on fintech services? And what potential do you think emerging startups hold in such kind of areas?
Good. So you know, I work in the core banking space within the banking arena, and if we look at core banking platforms, they are categorized into Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. So that's the history of evolution. Okay, Gen 1 is core banking platforms typically that run on the mainframe. These would be 30-plus-year-old platforms. Very robust, very stable, process large amount of transactions, but obviously on age, infrastructure, technology, etc. Right? That's Gen 1. Gen 2 are platforms that probably are in the 5 to 30-year-old space, which are more open system platforms. You know, this would run on Linux, Unix, things of that nature. You know, Gen 3 are the modern platforms, as we call, which typically would have been launched in the last, 3 to 4, 5 years, which are pure cloud-based or cloud technology-based platforms. Yeah. Now, everybody in the industry is transitioning either from Gen 1 and Gen 2 into Gen 3 for the apparent benefits that you see with a cloud-based technologies, whether it is elasticity, scalability, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah? Now, where we see usage, especially in the space that I work in, of using these technologies is in three facets. Facet number one is that people are building applications on the cloud. They could choose to deploy them for their production operations in the cloud, or they could take it back and put them in their private clouds or in their data centers. Okay, because within banking, there is still, I would say, especially core banking, there is still this little bit of concern or the comfort of data security from a banking perspective, given that banking is so highly regulated industry. There is, I think there is some more journey to go before everybody becomes comfortable. Now, each country, each bank are in different phase of journey and different phase of comfort. But what we see is that a lot of the banks today who are building new platforms, many of them, I would say most of them on the development side of the house, they use cloud for all the natural benefits that you can get, right? You can spin up and down, you can scale it up and down, everything is very fast. You don't have to wait for procuring servers, this, that, and all that stuff, right? So that's, we see that facet where development side of the house, most of them have moved on to the cloud, okay? The production side of the house, some banks are comfortable. They are comfortable for certain applications, where the data needs are minimal or not there, right? Like a channel application, things of that nature, yeah? But from a production perspective, some are comfortable to run in public cloud. Some don't want to run in public cloud yet, right? And also in some countries, you don't have the availability of public cloud where the data has to reside within the country from a regulatory perspective. So even if you are comfortable, if let's say there is no public cloud infrastructure where the data resides within the country, then you can't use it for production operations, right? So production is still a journey. Many of them from core banking, some are comfortable, some want to be in-house here. That's the second facet. The third facet is from a integration of services. Now, this is where you can start to see, if you take core banking again as an example, it's a interaction of many processes fulfilled by many components. And a lot of these new age components which provide that service are hosted in a cloud. So here the bank is basically making a service interaction with a provider who is running on a cloud. The bank could be in the private data center, but for that particular service, they are going out to that cloud and do it. So that's how we see the usage of cloud development. I would say any new age application, pretty much all of them do it on the cloud. Production, especially for platforms which have core banking data, is a journey still. Few are comfortable. Small banks are more comfortable. The large ones are still not yet that comfortable, right? And the third one is when they consume services that are provided by other providers, those providers can be sitting on the cloud. Like, for example, with the startups that we are working, where we have interacted, where we have consumed their services and offered it as a solution to our customers, both those startups, for example, operate on the cloud. So those would be the facets from a cloud perspective.
Thank you. I think banks are traditionally conservative from their technology standpoint because don't change what does not break is usually a concept. I think startups have influenced us moving and pivoting to newer technologies, and FIS is trying to ride the wave with startups. So thank you for eliciting that very well to us. Prashant, when it comes to FIS, and FIS is an organization that has global view, global existence, global perspective, how do you think we can tie down innovation of global scale with nurturing hyperlocal innovations, right? We had centers, we had specific curation of Bangalore startups, specific curation of Pune startups. We're trying to be hyperlocal at one sense, while still trying to maintain a global presence and a global market that we have to, and global standards that we have to adhere to. How do you bring this synergy?
Thanks, Karthik, for that question. In fact, that is the core essence of IN48. So if you really want to understand the startup ecosystem, the journey starts with a very focused niche problem and a niche area as well, like maybe India, maybe Indonesia, Philippines. And the story is always, okay, I'm trying to make my product market fit and trying to build my solution and sell to initial banks or initial financial institutions, which is much focused on specific region, specific area, right? Although they do that, it's just simply because their concepts are initial stage, they need to get tested for the robustness, right? But the actual concepts are something that can be applied globally as well, depending on what potential similarities that you have from region to region, right? And that's where the experience that we bring in from larger enterprises like FIS becomes very crucial to multiply exponentially the value of that, the initial idea, initial implementation of that startup there. And in order to do this, it is important to build that kind of a trust with the ecosystem and make sure that there's a win-win ecosystem that can be created with unlocking value from the both ends. And this can happen only when we are actually not just virtually connecting, but each of the local ecosystems are getting engaged. And I think this year, first time, we open the doors to startups to physically come to FIS office, look at the, become part of the events that we are conducted locally. And that gives a very different kind of engagement. We, in fact, had most of the senior management talk to some of the key startups that were present in the event there. And that feedback that we received from the startup was amazing, that on the day one, when we started the event, we could actually talk to the management stack there and explain what the ideas were. That built some kind of a trust to the ecosystem, and then follow-up communication, follow-up interactions with the local leaders within those ecosystem really builds that kind of a connect, the thing that is needed. We invest into people first, and then the opportunities keep changing, but the people remain, right? And that's something which we want to like reiterate from these local events that we are doing, that we understand the ecosystem, we are with the ecosystem, we are connected to ecosystem at the ground reality there, right? And given the fact that each country has its own specificities, like India is leading the way to DPI and leveraging DPI and how exactly this can interoperate between larger ecosystem across the world. And we have seen this into payments ecosystem, that similar models are emerging into other countries now. So the leaders, the thought leaders in this space, right from the early stage startups to the scaling startups to the established startups, are going to play a vital role in the global landscape. And I believe that not just India, but Asia Pacific itself has that potential to look at the local problems and try to understand, solve those locally first with a great success, and then replicate that model across. And I think the IN48, when we socialize this, we have put one of the key themes there is, if you're going to scale, you want to scale globally, and you have intent and resources for those areas, the time resources for those areas, then we are you're the right choice for IN48 cohort here. So that's how I believe that connected hyperlocal, I'll say, intelligence, as well as those trust fabric that we want to build upon, is going to fuel the global innovation as well at the same time.
Great, Prashant. I mean, I want to stick to you and continue the same topic. From a IN48 perspective, from an FIS collaboration standpoint, what do you think are the future strategies that we have to bolster innovation with the fintech startup community?
Right. So it is difficult to kind of see from the future point of view how the program will evolve, because the space is changing very rapidly and dynamically. But the core principles don't change much. The core principles still remain as how do we connect on the multidimensional ecosystem. And we want to emphasize that we understand the importance of the investor fabric, which is VCs, micro VCs, angels, CVCs. And we want to add to the existing IN48 kind of a program ways for these new elements to closely work with us, and then use the deal flows and curated startups that they have to work with us from various angles, not just directly going to the startups, but going to the ecosystem, going to the investors, VCs ecosystem, CVC ecosystems that we have in Asia Pacific, and see how we can broaden the collaborations there and significantly improve the connectivities between different diverse dots there. So this is what I see the IN48 program evolving. The DNA will still remain the same, but the idea here is to add multiple dimensions to it. And one of the key dimensions is how do we bridge the IN48 client edition and IN48 partner edition. It's more kind of aspirational, and make sure that not only the startups become part of the ecosystem, but how do you bring some flavor of our client ecosystem to bring together these two distinct kind of dimensions together. So that's the kind of evolution that I see most likely that next year will unfold with.
Thank you, Prashant. Well, actually, I have a lot more questions to ask, but we are running short of time. So I'm going to put one final question to both of you. Maybe Venu, to start with you. You have been the sponsor of the IN48 program, and innovation has been part of FIS's journey throughout, and for yours as well. Can you reflect on the journey that you had with innovation with FIS, and what advice you would give to startups in the fintech ecosystem?
Oh, this is a field that is, first is, I think we should all be very fortunate or excited to be playing in this space. Yeah, I mean, I think fintech, core banking, these are, at least for me, so exciting in the sense that, I mean, this is one of the domains where change is constant, whether it is change from technology, regulation, how you distribute the products, etc., is a constant thing, right? Which means that you are never static. There is always something exciting that's happening that keeps you very excited. Right? So if you look at myself, MVP is, I would say, the third platform that I'm building from ground up because of all these facets. And it just keeps you very interested because you're always learning, you're always experimenting, you're always coming up with something that adds value to the customers. So that's one side. The second aspect of this is the impact. I feel outside of healthcare and probably defense, this is one of the few areas where if you can offer something, you can impact. We are talking millions and millions of consumers, whether it is individuals or businesses, right? It is something that gives a lot of satisfaction that what you are working on is adding a value to millions of people. Right? That's the second exciting aspect of it. The third exciting aspect of it is it's an ecosystem that plays together, which means that you get the opportunity to interact with people across a variety of spectrum, whether you are partners, technology providers, regulators, ex-customers, etc. It's an opportunity to work with a variety of facets, right? And the last one is it's global in nature. Now you add these four, right? A change that is pervasive, always happening, keeps you on your toes, keeps you excited to learn something new every day. An ability to impact millions of consumers, businesses, or individuals. An ability to interact with a variety of partners and customers. And finally, an ability to have a global stage. Now, when you add these four, I mean, I just think, we are just very blessed to be in this space. And that's been my journey. I've worked in many countries, many platforms, got me the opportunity to interact with a very broad ecosystem. And that's a lot of, that's been fun, and I hope it continues.
Well, absolutely. Well, Prashant, any last words from yourself as well on your personal journey?
I think Venu covered it all.
Indeed.
Aspect to it that I felt was very rewarding, especially working at FIS. So as Venu rightly said, that change is constant, and that change brings one opportunity, which is innovation, while making the change to improve the overall efficiency and experience that we have. In order to do that innovation, you need to be having heightened sensitivity to the problems around you. You can't just look at the surroundings and just not sense them. It is the root of innovation is to sense the problems around and find solutions and build them. And that's the fun part of it. And I'm thankful to FIS ecosystem on my personal journey that has been very rewarding to get an opportunity to first witness the change and witness the first-hand pains that clients have. And with the heightened sensitivity, innovation becomes more logical next step. And that's something which becomes the DNA and not an add-on. And that's where I think this journey has been very fulfilling, specifically when it comes to programs like IN48. The expressivity of that DNA becomes very, I'll say, material there.
Thank you, Prashant. I think you summarized it very well. So, Venu, Prashant, what a wonderful session I had today. I'm sure the audience enjoyed it as much as I did asking these questions to you. Once again, thank you both for your time and sharing your view on the industry and your personal thoughts. So, thank you so much, and have a very nice day.
Thank you, Karthik.
Thank you. Karthik. It's a pleasure to be part of this. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.